Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to say thank you for the memorandum from the staff. I thought the memorandum was very helpful and did not go out of the way to try to paint a rosy picture that really doesn't exist. So there's every reason to believe that there's a lot of work to be done in Afghanistan. I also would like to try to categorize how I see what's happening over there. A lot of times, if there's a controversial program, people say, well, whether it's half full or half empty, which way are we going? I think to be generous, we could probably say that our program there is about 5% full and about 95% empty. And we've committed $3.5 billion, so it gives me room for a little bit of concern. I would like to ask one rhetorical question that has always bothered me when we get involved in a situation like this is, where in the world does the Congress and the administration get the moral authority to impose our will on other people and other countries, in this case in Afghanistan? I found it rather entertaining. I'm for all the goals that we all seek. I have no problems with that. It's just our methods. I find it sort of entertaining about this struggle for women's rights over there. So we help them write a constitution. The president is going to appoint a third of the senators, and then the president is instructed he must appoint 1/2 women. That just doesn't seem to jive with our general understanding of what democracy is all about, but that's probably a minor point. But I do appreciate the comments by Ms. Long about the drugs, how terrible it is, and how the situation has been turned around where there are no drugs. There's a lot of drugs now, and it's actually helping the al-Qaeda, and she does not hide from this because this has been one of our complaints and concerns. My big concern is that whether it's Afghanistan, Colombia, or here in the United States, we have been pursuing a war on drugs for 30 years, and we never changed the policy. We always just want more money and more guns, and we are going to root them out, and we're going to solve this problem. So I can't get any hope that that is going to be accomplished, because there's no evidence whatsoever in the last 30 years that more money and a tougher war on drugs ever helps people reduce their demand for drugs. We know that the Taliban is reorganizing, but I'm amazed at how the authority to go in and get the al-Qaeda has morphed into a war in Iraq and rebuilding Afghanistan. I mean, we voted for the authority to go after Osama bin Laden in October. By May of the next year, here we are, the Afghan Freedom Support Act, which is your responsibility to carry out. And now that's nation building, and we don't even talk about Osama bin Laden. That's somebody else's problem. Osama bin Laden, the odds are great that he's in Pakistan. Pakistan isn't a democracy. It's a military dictatorship. And we just promised them $800 million. And we step a foot over their property line there, and they're after us. I mean, the whole thing makes no sense whatsoever. And it's so discouraging. You know, I thought Mr. Lantos's point was pretty good. He was outraged by the fact that our allies don't help us. And he has a right to be outraged. But what he doesn't understand is they're not going to help us. It's pie in the sky dreaming if we think we will. And he says if we don't get it, that our efforts will be undermined. We ought to be prepared for that, because that's likely to happen. But my question has to do with, comes from an article written this week by Robert Novak. I'm sure you've seen it, and that has to do with Afghanistan. Now, Robert Novak is not a left-wing Democrat. He's a very conservative Republican, and he supports the administration and would like to see this go better. So he talks to his inside information from the military, and this is what he says. And if this is true, we need to know it, and if it is true, we ought to be changing our policy in Afghanistan. The situation in Afghanistan, as laid out to me, and this was by military people, looks nothing like a country alleged to be progressing toward representative democracy under American tutelage. Hamid Karzai is the U.S.-sponsored Afghan president, is regarded by the U.S. troops as hopelessly corrupt and kept in power by U.S. forces of arms. Now, is that true or not? If it is true, if you don't know, what are we going to do about it?
It's not true, Congressman.
So Robert Novak has written something absolutely incorrect.
It is not true that the U.S. military believes that the president of Afghanistan is hopelessly corrupt. That's what I just said.
And there's no chance that he's involved with corruption.
There's no chance that he is involved in the kind of corruption that suggests. Now, it is certainly true that that Afghanistan is a difficult place, and Afghanistan's families, the families of individuals, go all over. So I certainly can't speak for any member of an extended family. I had many conversations with people in Afghanistan, with ministers of Afghanistan. I can remember one whose name I won't use, who said, I was sitting beside him at some meeting, and I told him that I had met his cousin a couple of days before. And he said, "Oh, which one?" I told him the name. And he said, "Oh, that's my good relative." He has other relatives. So I'm not speaking for that. But I will tell you that President Karzai is widely respected, not just by the Afghan people where it is, but also by the Americans, by the American military, by the international community. We are lucky we have a President Karzai in Afghanistan. We would like to have, we hope we see emerging a President Karzai-like person in Iraq. But no, I would say very strongly that we are very lucky to have him, and he is someone who can lead this country forward.
Thank you.
Mr. Paul, or Mr. Chairman, could I respond just briefly to one point that Mr. Paul made, sir? On the point of that Mr. Lantos raised earlier about whether our allies should be giving more. I mean, it's a fair point, and I'm glad he was a gentleman and said it's well above our pay grades, which I appreciate. But I think by the time you made the comment about they're not doing anything, I do want to point out that a number of our allies, I mean, the Japanese, the Germans, the British, three that hit me, certainly on the reconstruction side, have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in that country, are working very closely with us on the ground. And so I just want to make sure that we make a distinction between a fair issue, which was how much each country should contribute, but certainly it's not a question that they're not doing anything. A lot of folks out there are doing a lot of good besides ourselves. Thank you, sir.